Welcome to episode 15 of the Apollo Chamber Players 20x2020 Virtual Festival. I'm Flynn, and today we're talking about, strangely enough, number 15 of the 20x2020 commissions. This is a string quartet by Cuban composer Leo Brouwer, titled Nostalgia de las Montañas. I believe my Spanish is fairly accurate there. Matt, how did this commission come about? Leo Brouwer, one of the great world musicians, and obviously one of the greatest Cuban musicians and composers. How did you come to get a commission out of Leo Brouwer?
That's correct, St. John. There's a little bit of mystery and intrigue and serendipity to this commission. When we started the project in 2014, I think I got a little bit excited, and I cold emailed a bunch of very famous composers. One of whom was Libby Larsen, and that one actually turned out for us. And the other one was Jennifer Higdon, and as our viewers will see in the last episode, that one also turned out. So I got a little excited, and I wrote an email to an email address that I had found for Leo Brouwer. Totally forgot about it. Let's fast forward to one morning in January 2018, and I get my coffee and I go to my emails, and all of a sudden I get a response that says commission for 20x2020 from Leo Brouwer. So I open it, and in it says, Maestro Brouwer is ready to write for Apollo Chamber Players.
Wow.
And this was written by his manager, who I think is his wife as well. So I completely forgot that I had emailed him. And again,
when had you sent the email originally?
So I sent the email originally in 2014, probably like February or April. As far February or March, when we had initially put the project together, and received a response 4 years later. There's nothing weird about that. But I literally forgot about it, and over the course of a couple of emails, he was in Spain at that time. And he was like, I want to do this now in the next half a year. So I asked him what he might be inspired to write about. We were thinking about doing a program about Brazil for our season opener in September 2018. And he wrote back and said, hey, I visited Brazil a couple times when I was younger, and I was really taken by the mountain ranges of Rio de Janeiro and Brazil in general. So he chose that theme, and I said, let's do it. And we got a really, really wonderful commission out of him.
One of the, serendipitous elements here is that the chair of the board of directors of the Apollo Chamber Players is Lorenzo Martinez, who is here on the episode with us. And Lorenzo, you yourself were born and raised in Cuba.
Right. Yes, I was. I was there until I was about a little bit over 17, and I came to this country, and I have been here ever since. Leo, on the other hand, lives in Spain, although he was born in Cuba, and received his first musical training in Cuba. But then he actually came to this country and studied at Juilliard, and later in Germany. So initially his works had the Cuban rhythms. He used a lot of the Cuban rhythms, so it had a Cuban flavor. But then he sort of walked away from that and became very atonal, and he's written a lot of compositions for ballet, for films. In fact, he wrote the score for a Mexican film. I don't know if any of you remember, Like Water for Chocolate. Leo wrote the score for that film. And actually, that's how I first became familiar with him, even though he comes from a long lineage of very well-known Cuban composers.
And he actually came, in the last couple of decades, he kind of came back to his Afro-Cuban roots in terms of his compositional style. So you'll hear a lot of that I think you have the Cuban folk music, and then you have kind of the atonal Bartokian elements, and then you have his, the Afro-Cuban rhythms that really make up his very unique and distinct voice.
Right.
I think it's worth pointing out, and I apologize for not saying this earlier, Lorenzo, that you are actually one of the underwriters for this commission. What has the history of Cuba, what impact has it had on you, and has it had on Leo Brouwer?
Well, I think that I will always be Cuban, even though I have spent more than half my life in this country. But I think when you are born in a country, your soul never leaves it. And although I have visited it twice since I left, I feel that my soul is very Cuban. I have written about my journey from Cuba to the United States in a memoir called Cuba, Adios. And I was very intrigued, of course, about Leo Brouwer wanting to write for Apollo because, as I said, he comes from a lineage of wonderful composers that I was very familiar with. And so I was very interested to see what he would do for Apollo, which is why I decided to underwrite part of this commission.
Annabelle, a question I like to ask of the musicians: when the score arrived from Maestro Brouwer in the mail, and you opened it and you took a look at it, what did you think? What was your immediate first reaction?
We had already been playing a little bit of his music in the past. We had done the guitar quintet.
Yes.
And one of his other quartets, number 3, I believe it was. And so we weren't completely unfamiliar with his musical style. The piece, Nostalgia de las Montañas, the new piece that he wrote for us, is a little different. I can say that I feel like it has lots of different influences, but I can also say that it has a unique voice. So it was very interesting, and we were very much looking forward to putting it together.
Apollo premiered this work. This is Brouwer's 6th string quartet in September of 2018 on a program titled Brazilian Beats, Matt. We're getting now into the realm of dance, aren't we?
We are. This was a program where we featured 2 Houston ballet dancers, Cuban-born ballet dancers, Monica Gomez and Estheysis Menendez, along with 2 members of the group, which is now known as the Institute of Contemporary Dance. So we had 4 dancers on stage with us. We had some choreography done by Marlena Doyle, which was really fun, with us on stage, and Matthew Dudzik in his with his cello strap, so he was walking around as well. So yeah, this was a really fun thing to do. So what we wanted to do later on as part of this virtual festival was collaborate with as many Houston ballet dancers as we could. So really, Annabelle and I approached Monica at first to maybe see if she was interested in choreographing to this particular commission, given the Cuban connection. And she suggested contacting Melody. And from there, the project kind of evolved to include one other brand new Cuban-born dancer of the Houston Ballet, Gretel Batista. And so Melody choreographed a portion of this piece for those 3 dancers. And we're really excited to see what she did with it.
Well, Melody Mennite is one of the Houston Ballet principal dancers. Melody, talk about this this project and how the choreography all came about and came together.
So I think, I got an email from Matthew and then got on a Zoom with Matthew and Annabelle. And they told me about this composer, and they told me a lot of what you already heard in this call so far. And so I listened to the music, first thing when we got off the call. And so I will say, I understand why Monica was like, make her do it. because it's very complex. The rhythms that he uses in this piece are very complex and just like shifting and changing constantly, which is quite beautiful. What I found interesting is that the more that we actually moved to it and danced to it and like built it, the more we heard. And so it was a really interesting process. I think right in the beginning of it, because I'm not as familiar with this piece of music, I haven't, learned to play it and sat with it and worked through it. I initially pulled more on learning about him and his background. So I wanted to honor, what I could understand about what it is to be Cuban, that the three women that I'm working with are Cuban, and like what could we pull in from that to sort of honor their culture. But then, like they said, he also wrote this piece about, being inspired by the mountains of Brazil. So I'm like, okay, so how do I want to explore this through movement? And what I ended up landing on, and this is Matthew and Annabelle, and, everyone's hearing this for the first time right now, so surprise. But what came to me really was that what's in both places, in what I see in Cuban culture and what I see in Brazilian culture, is there's like this bright, colorful, rich, outdoor, like natural wild beauty. And since he's talking about the mountains, or I say talking about, when we make art, I say we're talking about stuff. So, he's inspired by the mountains. I did a little bit of a dive into nature that's in both Brazilian mountains and Cuban mountains. And there's all these birds that are very rare, that are very bright. And so I turned my ladies into birds. And we have, actually, I'm going to show you, every rehearsal I would show them, this is our little mascot.
All right.
And to kind of give us some energy. So we wanted to tap into that wild, sort of like natural, beautiful world that both Cuba and Brazil share that. And sort of honor what's going on in our time right now, and what I think of as like, when I hear about Cuban history and anywhere's history, there's this like underneath sort of like a mountain, like the base of a mountain, there's this sort of like stuff you don't see that grounds it, that settles it. Some of it's very hard, some of it's very, constricting almost, but it's the root of all the beauty that you see. And so we tried to show that dichotomy of like the women kind of being contained and rooted and grounded and small, which you can also think of quarantine, which where the world is in right now. And then this sort of like bursting out into a mountain, into this beautiful wild space. So who knows if you'll get any of that from seeing, the piece, but that's what we were working with thematically. And that's what I heard in the music too. It's funny, the more that we moved with the music and sat with it, I could really hear that, and I could hear the birds. It really, there's the way the strings fly all over the place, and the way the rhythms kind of like go da and then get still. It was very wild. It's very much like nature.
Where did you all film?
They all filmed where they were. So everyone had sections to film in an indoor space that we decided on.
Okay.
And then everyone had sections to film in a whole bunch of different outdoor spaces, which hopefully will be quite lovely. Yeah. Cool.
One thing that I find very interesting is that Fidel came down from the mountains when he took over Cuba. He fought the revolution from the mountains of Sierra Maestra. And in fact, when Matt and I started talking about adding dance to the performance, I asked him to contact Monica because I knew that she had danced with the Cuban Ballet, and I was very familiar with that group, and in fact had met the founder of the Cuban Ballet, and I write about my meeting with her in my book.
Alicia Alonso, right?
I danced with her. I was one of the youngsters from the conservatory recruited to be part of the crowd scene in Giselle. So she instructed me on how to walk on stage like a dancer. So I walked around the stage during rehearsals with my arm around her waist. So I always say that I danced with Alicia Alonso.
Yeah.
I would pay good money to see that.
Yeah.
Well, I think the next thing to do is to watch Apollo perform this work by Leo Brouwer, and also the choreography and dancing featuring Melody and her colleagues. This is Nostalgia de las Montañas by Leo Brouwer, his string quartet number 6, the 15th of the Apollo Chamber Players 20 by 2020 commissions. Enjoy the performance. From the Brazilian Beats program of September 2018. That was the Apollo Chamber Players performing the world premiere of their 15th 20 by 2020 commission, Leo Brouwer's String Quartet number 6, Nostalgia de las Montañas. And we saw there as well, we had a dance featuring, let me see, Monica Gomez, Estheysis Menendez, and Gretel Batista, choreographed by Houston Ballet principal dancer Melody Mennite. Matt, one of the elements that ties in very nicely with not just the music and the dance here, but is art as well. And behind you in your background is a wonderful piece that Apollo commissioned from artist Tony Parana.
That's correct, St. John. This came about from a conversation I had with the director of the Brazilian Arts Foundation. We were looking to partner with them for this concert, our Brazilian-inspired concert. And I remember looking up on the wall, and I saw this really striking, beautiful piece of art, this canvas art. And the director started talking about Tony Parana, this Brazilian artist. And he said, you might want to get in touch with him. Maybe he could, to do something for your program. So I did. I contacted Tony. I think we hit it off right away. And I told him about the specifics of this program. And I thought maybe he could draw us, create something to connect all the different really cool elements of this particular program.
And Tony Parana is here with us. Tony, hello. What did they tell you that they wanted?
A lot of stuff. Well, it's a lot of subjects that related to me already, you know, music, dance, and art. But I was trying to make sure that I can get, you know, Cuba, Brazil, things that connect the countries. And of course, everything else is already connected. Music, art, it's universal. So all of that was just coming together. So I have a lot of components that made my life easier, and it gives me a lot of windows to put together different ideas.
And talk about some of the elements in the picture here that we can see. I believe up there is Leo Brouwer.
Right here.
Yeah, that's him. That's him. Well, we have the two composers in each side in that, you know.
This is Heitor Villa-Lobos. So he is basically Brazil's most famous classical
most famous composer. Yeah. So we have the two composers in the back with some signs of the flag, you know, more showing the connection. And then we have the musicians in the middle playing the instrument like they are performing. It's the whole canvas. It's a live movement. So we have the musicians in action, and you also have the dancers in action, moving, you know, in positions of dancing. And then I have other extra details, you know, music symbols, and of course the favelas, which is a big subject of my work. I love doing favelas. We have favelas in Cuba as well. So a lot of those important subjects make it stronger, the connection between you know, the two countries. So a lot of details in there. If you get closer, I'll also have the map in the middle with the cello. You can see right
so
there.
I mean, I think Tony, you were thinking of you know, using as the basis of this the country of Brazil, and then this was your idea, and you said it looks like a cello. I mean, and they do have kind of a similar frame, right? Structure.
Right. And it's also because it's such a big canvas, it's really hard for you to finish and say, look, it's finally finished, you know, because as you walk through it, like, maybe I can add the details here, maybe I can add the details there. So I use the amount of space that I have very, very precisely to make sure that I can deliver the professional work that everybody can connect with, the public can connect with. So it was a great experience.
And obviously this was the backdrop to your Brazilian Beats program. What else do you use this piece for?
So in spring of 2019, we did a Brazilian Beats sort of redux performance at, was it Marshall Middle School? It was Marshall Middle School. And so we had the honor of bringing Tony's canvas with us, and Tony was there and Matt was there, and we were, with the help of some teachers, trying to suspend it in the gym between two basketball hoops so that we would have a backdrop for our performance. So we played the Brouwer, we played some Villa-Lobos, and there were dancers there, and we talked with the students about how to create art in a just interdisciplinary way through music and art and motion. We also brought the canvas with us to Texas State University, and we also mounted it on a stage to perform for the Texas State String Camp, actually. So we had another opportunity to try to be, you know, the kind of people that try to figure out how to do all that kind of stuff. And we did it on our own as a quartet that time. So
you should say that the painting was made possible by a commission from Patricia, Gail, Bray, and Stephen Linder. Patricia was a former Apollo board member, and she and Stephen made this painting possible. And earlier we were speaking to Lorenzo Martinez, who was one of the underwriters for the Leo Brouwer Commission, along with Candice and Roger Moore and Shelby Allen and Polly Johnson. So these collaborations are really central to everything that Apollo does. Isn't that so, Matthew?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think from the very beginning, even the name Apollo Chamber Players implies that the form of the group was flexible. And so getting to step outside the bounds of just the string quartet and add instrumentalists and then also add dance and a visual fine art component, well, that's been part of sort of the vision of Apollo from the very beginning.
Also on the Brazilian Beats program, where you premiered the Leo Brouwer commission, you also performed one of his other string quartets, the string quartet number 3, and that included choreography. And we're going to see 2 of the movements that were choreographed from that performance. Set this up for us before we take a look at it.
You know, I think that this is a nice way to come full circle for this particular episode. And I think it'll be kind of a nice bookend to the new choreography that they did for Nostalgia de las Montañas. So I think our listeners will enjoy this performance of his 3rd string quartet.
Before we go to that, something that we haven't mentioned in this episode is Apollo going to Cuba and performing and recording in Cuba. What year was that?
That was in 2017, and yeah, we all were very inspired by that trip. We have a particular affection for Cuba, and Lorenzo Martinez. That's how we became connected with Lorenzo. He was an advisor to that tour and the recording that we made there, and I just think that that whole experience has really shaped our lives and our music making.
And we should say again that Lorenzo's book, his memoir, is titled Cuba, Adios. And it's a fascinating story, and one that has a tinge of sadness, but also is incredibly inspiring as well. Much like the music of Leo Brouwer.
That's right.
Well, let's take a look then at these 2 movements, the 3rd and 4th movements. The 3rd movement is The Impossible Dance, and the 4th movement, titled The Rhythm of the Night Changed, from Leo Brouwer's String Quartet number 3 at the Match in Houston, September of 2018. Enjoy. Bye.